Alright, hello there, AP Human Geo Kids. Let's keep learning all about agriculture stuff. You know, food. It's our favorite thing. Let's keep learning about it. Alright, so here's a bunch of slides about excess vocabulary. These are just going to fill in some information that's not really covered anywhere else, not a bigger theme like GMO versus organic or anything. But let's just look at some of these pictures. What we got? We got an agricultural drone. We got people doing wet rice farming. Dude tilling the soil with a common plow tool, and then a dude super tilling the soil with a massive mechanical reaper. Anything's possible. Okay, so the first thing to talk about is sawa. This is something that you should have seen in your textbook, but I'm hitting it again, and I'm hitting it hard. It's a special type of rice field in Indonesia, a technique that typically uses terracing, where you kind of cut up a mountain, you put it in different levels. And so here's what terracing looks like. You'll find this all over Asia. I think it's honestly kind of beautiful, but it is definitely humans altering the landscape so they can use it to more effectively grow rice. And all these are little rice puddles because rice needs tons of water, and they're just growing rice all over the place. And it's the sawa terracing technique. So just be aware of those. All right, now let's talk about dairying. Oh my goodness, dairy is my favorite. There's a lot of people in the world who can't really do dairy, and actually, you know, I'm not big on milk, but I'm big on yogurt and cheese. I'm a huge fan. So, yeah, and dairying, it's just anything that you do with cows, and you turn in cow's milk, and you can make all kinds of fun stuff with it. And what I think is cool is the price of milk was $7 a gallon back in 1915, and now it's $3 a gallon in 2006. So many things grew in price over the years, but milk has become cheaper, and it's because we've got robots milking the cows. Milk is widely used and widely made, and same with cheese and all this other fun stuff. So dairying is a big, awesome, great thing. You'll only really find it a lot in Western countries. I think East Asia still really didn't have as big of a culture based with dairy, so you really won't find a lot of cheese and too many East Asian foods. But everybody else just loves dairying, so get it. All right, here's where you'll find cows per square kilometer. So let's look at the big cow countries in the United States. Looks like Wisconsin is all about the cows. New York, Pennsylvania, California's got a lot of cows in the middle. But otherwise, cows are kind of spread out. Like Idaho, you've got a bunch of cows. So that's pretty cool. All these things to make milk. And yes, dairy. Oh, my favorite. Okay, now let's talk about some other strategies with farming. So you got monoculture, monocropping. It means that you're only growing one crop on your field. You're typically growing the same crop again and again and again and again. This style does have some disadvantages. It goes against crop rotation because if you do practice monocropping and monoculture year after year, your soil will eventually degrade. It also tends to attract pests to these crop fields, especially if you monocrop in one giant, 1,000-acre field. That's where you get European corn borers and these bugs that just are like, oh, hey, look, it's our favorite food. We'll hang out here for years. And I know that terrace farming, typically with rice farming, though, like you can monocrop rice just because you're flooding the field all the time and you're actually using very little of the soil. You're using mostly the incredible amount of water. So monocropping with rice makes sense, but if you monocropped almost anything else that didn't need a flooded field, it would eventually terribly deplete the soil. Okay, now let's talk about double cropping and polycropping. These are the same exact term, and it means growing more than one crop on the same piece of land. An example of that is crop rotation, where you're just like, okay, the spring crop will be turnips, and then the summer crop will be wheat. But I think, I hope I don't say this wrong, but somebody told me that you could actually grow, I want to say it's grapes and tomatoes on the exact same patch of dirt. And that the grapes grow up, the tomatoes grow on the soil, and they somehow can complement each other while they're growing. I don't quote me on tomatoes. It was grapes and something else, but I was really amazed when a farmer friend of mine told me that. So there are certain crops that want to actually be right next to each other and use the same land and field, and they just complement each other greatly. So that's all pretty cool. All right, let's check it out. So here's what monoculture looks like. It's just everyone's growing wheat. And then here's double cropping. So they've got, I'm not entirely sure what crop this is, but this looks like some kind of, maybe it's pumpkins and something else, but they're sharing the same land and the same field. So maybe they're working together in a good way. And then here's, monocropping rice, but it's all right because you're flooding the field. And here these guys, they're double cropping. I'm not entirely sure what these crops are. Maybe it's corn and carrots, but yeah, maybe it's working. Who knows? Okay, now let's talk about mixed farming. Mixed farming is an agricultural system where a farmer does it all. It's old MacDonald had a farm, and it's, well, what did MacDonald have on his farm? He had cows and horses and pigs, and he farmed corn and tomatoes. Old MacDonald did a whole lot, okay? Old MacDonald did not focus on just one thing. And focusing on one thing tends to be what modern farmers do, but there's still plenty of people out there that practice the traditional mixed farming style where one farmer manages a bunch of different livestocks and crops and figures it all out. So you've got to be kind of a jack of all trades to be an effective mixed farmer, but some people still do it. So, and then there definitely is something to be said. If you're a farmer and you got your own cows, then your cows provide the manure to use to fertilize your soil. So there can be a mixed farm where it's sort of like all the pieces can come together and you can be a really, really productive member in society by just handling it all yourself. Pretty cool. All right, mixed farm, making it happen. Mixed farm, he's got it all. He's doing all the things that a farmer could possibly do. Okay, and now let's connect agriculture to migration. So who picks the majority of fruit and vegetables in the United States tends to be migrant workers. Also, who works in almost all the cow and chicken processing plants? Migrant workers. And then we could connect this to political by we'll talk about these states that have more of a agriculture vibe tend to vote more Republican. Why is that? So usually I'd like to have a student discussion here, but I guess I'll come up with all the ideas right now. And it's, I know that a couple years back, the state of, I think it's Mississippi or Alabama, really cracked down on illegal immigrants, and then no one was there to pick the crops or to work in the chicken processing plants. So it kind of shut down the economy because they were so thinking that, illegal immigrants are a problem, but illegal immigrants were the ones doing all the work. It's a big issue. And then, why is there so much of a conflict then? Well, it's just traditional Americans feel that their ways of life are being threatened by immigrants, and, the immigrants need money and need to do jobs. So these are all issues that are kind of combining together in our agricultural environment. Okay, so there's chicken processing plant, probably in Arkansas. Notice, Migrant Seasonal Agricultural Worker Protection Act. Yeah, and there's been a long tradition of America talking to other countries being like, hey, send us some people to help work on our farms. And these people are happy to do it. And they're not making a lot of money, but, that's their job. And they are doing it, picking the food, and making food for the United States. Okay, and this is a huge thing. And honestly, I thought when the COVID pandemic of 2020 started, I thought this would be majorly affected. But I was surprised to see that our global supply chain has held up. I mean, even in a difficulty like the global pandemic, we never ran out of food in the grocery stores. And I mean, I think for a while, there weren't some specific foods, and I think, randomly trying to find flour has been hard for a lot of people. But for the most part, every time I've been to the grocery store throughout the entire 2020 pandemic, everything I've ever wanted has always been there in surplus. And it's because of this global supply chain of agriculture. The capitalism of the world has just figured it out and figured it out really well that whatever kind of food people want, they're going to find somewhere on planet Earth where they can grow it. They can bring it to the market throughout the entirety of the year so people can consistently eat their favorite foods all year round. And what's kind of cool is the food at your supermarket could be grown on the other side of planet Earth. I mean, especially like right now, it's the winter of 2020. Crops generally don't grow in the winter unless if you have fancy greenhouses and scientific modifications made to them. But typically, during the winter, a lot of our fruits and vegetables come from South America. And then when it's our summertime and South America's wintertime, they get a lot of their fruits and vegetables from us. So there is this great interconnectedness to food all over the world. When I lived in South Korea, I was desperate for guacamole, and Koreans just culturally don't really prefer avocados. So I imported avocados from New Zealand, and those got sent to me in South Korea. And there definitely is this kind of global matching that I'll do my best to show you on some of these maps. But typically, fruits and vegetables in the winter will get sent from South America to the United States. They'll be sent from South Africa to Europe, and they'll be sent from Australia, New Zealand to Korea, China, Japan. So it's just interesting how there's this logistical matching in how agriculture influences economics around the world. So it's pretty cool. The Global Food Supply Network. All right, let's check it out. So avocado production, yes, my favorite food. So of course Mexico is the big winner in avocado production because hey, it's a huge part of Mexican food, but then just about all Latino food is big in avocados. And yeah, they poor South Korea and Japan, they just don't really do avocados. I mean, avocados are in a lot of sushi actually, but they couldn't grow them in their environments anyway. And it's just kind of a cultural difference why there isn't more being grown down here. But surprising amount grow in Indonesia as well. So, yeah. Avocados, get it. This is global fig production. I don't know if any of you have ever had a fig Newton. But, figs aren't really a big deal in the United States. But figs are a huge deal in Arab culture. Arabs just put figs in everything. And there's a lot of, like, fig-based desserts and stuff like that. So naturally, huge amount of figs being grown in this part of the world. More of a cultural preference than anything else, I'd argue. And then here's olive production around the world. I remember once I tried to talk to a Korean friend of mine. I was like, hey, do you have any olives? And they've never even heard of olives. And I had to explain it. I was like, it's this black fruit. And they're like, why would you eat something that's black? You know, I thought that was really funny. But, so yeah, olive production around the world, definitely more of a Western-centric kind of food and a Latino kind of food as well, but not big in Asia. Okay, what is this? Bananas. Oh, God, I love bananas. Bananas, they usually rank up there with the most popular fruit in the world, but it looks like you can grow bananas in just about all warmer climates. If it gets too cold, you can't grow bananas, so dang it, no banana tree in Nevada anytime soon. But yeah, so bananas all over the world, getting shipped all over the place. Next time you get a banana, see if you can find out where it came from. What was this one? This is this rice production? Yeah, rice production. Okay. Rice production, yeah, Asia's gonna win this one because rice is just everyone's favorite thing. Surprisingly enough, Korea, it's only the top 10 on countries where Uncle Ben's rice is sourced from. Oh, okay. Wow. So Uncle Ben's rice gets a whole bunch from China and Indonesia. Not as much from the United States, but they've got centuries, almost to a millennia of figuring out rice production and terracing mountains to just make them really efficient at growing rice. So that makes a whole lot of sense. Also need a lot of water. And where in the world is wheat? So it looks like wheat doesn't like to grow in the really warm climates. It likes to grow in kind of the the mid cold, mid warm climates. So yeah, the mid or the more cold climates. But yeah, so what is this? Right around the Tropic of Capricorn here, you'll find a whole bunch of wheat being grown, and then you'll see a little bit in Argentina and Australia. But otherwise, it's mostly a Western India, China kind of thing. All right, warm climate versus cool climate. So, and this is all about wine. So these are the only places in the world where you will find wine being produced. So it looks like the USA, Canada, Chile, Argentina, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, and a bunch of countries in Europe, and Israel, surprisingly. Okay, so yeah, that's where you'll find wine. And I definitely have had a lot of wine in my life. You know, kids, you'll get there one day. And the wine from various parts of the world has very different tastes to it. So some people are really big into wine. They make a huge deal out of it. And actually, I think I read somewhere that the Californian wine industry makes more money than the film industry in California. That blew my mind. So much money can be made with wine. But yeah, so typically, if you're trying to get some new bottles of wine, well, there's so many bottles of wine. You're never going to run out of wine. But the southern region of the world can make wine, while the northern region of the world is in wintertime. So the world's never going to run out of wine. Okay, and then this is just growing stuff all over the world. The world's this interconnected super farmers market. Okay, now cultivation regions. So these are regions which a large amount of agriculture takes place of a specific crop. So here in the United States, corn is a huge thing in the Midwestern United States, especially in the states of Iowa and Illinois. China tends to have kind of the rice zone and the wheat zone. And a new thing in China is they're starting to have a potato zone as well. So that's interesting. But anyway, here I'll zoom in on these to show more specifically. But a cultivation region is where there's kind of like one crop that dominates the agricultural landscape. Okay, if any of you ever go to the state of Iowa, all you're going to see are cornfields. Okay, just like corn is the number one thing Iowa does. And they don't like to do anything else. Don't mess with Iowa, don't mess with corn. Okay, so here's China. You'll see that rice is largely in the southern part of China, and that makes a lot of sense because this is the warmer, wetter part of China as well. And wheat tends to be in the northern part of China because it's a little bit colder. They don't get as many monsoon rains coming in. And I think I remember reading something that Xinjiang, Tibet, Inner Mongolia, that's turning into a potato farming zone in China. So they're definitely growing crops, having these cultivation regions depending on the environments of these different parts of China itself. So pretty cool stuff. And then here's the bean belt. So this is the only region of the world that can effectively grow coffee. The next time you ever go to a Starbucks or a Dutch Brothers, if you look at like where did the coffee come from, they always have this big thing. It's like, oh, this is Ethiopian coffee. Get some. Ooh, this is Sumatra coffee. Ooh, you got to try that. So all that's the part of the world where all the coffee comes from, and it seems like almost none of the West is in this part, actually. I mean, maybe Australia to a little bit. But Western countries just love coffee, and they can't make any of it themselves. So there's got to be some international trading going on to connect coffee to the rest of the world. All right, and then this is tobacco farms in the United States. You can see it's basically the states of Kentucky, North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, and a little bit Florida, Georgia, but it's Kentucky, North Carolina. So tobacco is a huge thing. I guarantee you, if someone's like, hey, we should make cigarettes illegal in the United States, tobacco in North Carolina would vote against it hard, because those are the cultivation regions of tobacco in the United States. And surprising fact, the United States actually sends a lot of cigarettes to other countries in the world. I remember when I was in South Korea, a whole lot of people were like, ooh, American cigarettes, my favorite. And I was like, wow, I never really thought people would prefer cigarettes. Okay, and then here's winter wheat. So this is where you'll find a lot of wheat in the United States. It looks like Kansas is the big wheat-centric place. Also a good amount in Washington State and Ohio and southern Illinois. So that's the wheat region of the USA. And yeah, I guess it makes sense. It's, well, does it snow in Kansas? I don't really think it does. But it's definitely not a warmer state, so it's just right in the middle, right where it should be. All right, cool. Okay, that's it for me. Peace out.